All right. Good evening and welcome to the Taft City Council meeting for September 2nd, 2014. Would you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then an invocation led by Pastor Howard Tello of the Taft Seventh-day Adventist Church. Please salute the flag and pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Father, we thank you so much for the opportunity that you've granted us to be here tonight. Bless us and bless the business that we are going to cover here for our town. We pray in the name of Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Tello. May we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Linder?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Pryor?
Here.
Councilmember Miller?
Here.
Councilmember Moore?
Here.
And Councilmember Waldrop?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's nice to have a full council tonight, gentlemen. First item on the agenda tonight is a proclamation for Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. Do you know if there's anybody here receiving this tonight? Guess not. Just curious. So if you'll bear with me, I'm going to read this proclamation. So the City of Taft on September is honoring for September 2014 Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. Whereas the American Cancer Fund for Children and Kids Cancer Connection Report Cancer is the leading cause of death by disease among U.S. children between infancy and age 15. This tragic disease is detected in more than 15,000 of our country's young people each and every year. And whereas 1 in 5 of our nation's children loses his or her battle with cancer, many infants, children, and teens will suffer from long-term effects of comprehensive treatment, including secondary cancers. And whereas founded over 20 years ago by Stephen Firestein, a member of the philanthropic Max Factor family, that's always a good word, the American Cancer Fund for Children Incorporated and Kids Cancer Connection Incorporated are dedicated to helping these children and their families. And whereas the American Cancer Fund for Children and Kids Cancer Connection provide a variety of vital patient psychosocial services to children undergoing cancer treatment at Lawrence Small Children's Medical Center, at Bakersfield Memorial Hospital, Loma Linda University's Children's Hospital, as well as participating hospitals throughout the country, thereby enhancing the quality of life for these children and their families. And whereas the American Cancer Fund and Children and Kids Cancer Connection also sponsor Courageous Kids Recognition Award ceremonies, and hospitals celebrate in honor of a child's determination and bravery to fight the battle against childhood cancer. Now therefore it is proclaimed, the City Council of the City of Taft hereby proclaims September 2014 as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and is signed and dated this day by the Mayor and all 4 council members. Thank you, gentlemen. All right. Next item on the agenda is a presentation of the proposed fiscal year 2014-15 budget. Mr. Jones and maybe Mrs. Binkley? Tracy. All right.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. This evening, I am presenting the 2014-15 budget. Okay. Some of the budget highlights that we'll see within the 14-15 budget is that the 14-15 budget closely resembles the 2013-14 budget. We kind of tried to stay very conservative with our numbers, as you'll see later on in the presentation, that for the first time in the past several years, our financial outlook is looking much better. We're able to, the revenues and expenditures are meeting each other, and we're doing much, much better. The 2014-15 proposed budget represents about $6.8 million, which is an increase of approximately $440,000. And I'll explain some of those differences within the presentation. The changes that are made in the 2014-15 budget is that the records administrator, city clerk, is now being held by two separate. The city clerk is an elected position, or at this time we have an appointed city clerk. And also the records administrator, prior to the dissolving of the RDAs, 20% of the record administrator's salary was coming from or being paid by the redevelopment agency. So at this time now, due to the lack of funds, money, revenue that comes into the RDA, now 100% of the records administrator's expenses is being paid out of general fund. Another item that has happened, and again, this is based upon the action that has taken place at the state level, is that enterprise zones are no longer in existence. This one did not have an impact in general fund, but the enterprise zone was being tracked and completely separate in a separate account, so that we could show that we were spending monies for that activity based upon the agreement that we had to become an enterprise zone. Now that position is being put back into the city administrative department, so there is a change in the salary line. It looks like there's an actual increase, but in reality, it's just a reclassing of a position from enterprise zone over to city administrator. Also, in the finance department, there is an increase in general fund because of currently right now, as we're making loans for grants, before we would have deliverables, and a portion of my salary and the accountant's salary that does record keeping for the grants was being funded and paid by grants administration and activity delivery that was allowed. But due to the city not having deliverables at this time, and making deliverables is making a loan, so 100% of our salaries are now just being allocated to finance. Maybe at another point in time, when we do start having deliverables, we can readjust that and take a look to see what's available. But currently, in the budget, just to make sure that we account for our salaries, the worst case scenario, and make sure that we know what our full cost from the finance department could be, we went ahead and put it in the general fund budget. The finance committee met couple weeks ago, and when they recommended the budget to be forwarded to the full council, at that time they made a request that we go ahead and increase the budget in salary cost in the police department to cover an additional police officer, so it'd be represented in this budget. So later on down the line, when it goes through personnel committee, and then it'll be brought back before council to add an additional position. But currently, there's money in there to fund a position that hasn't been approved as of yet. Also, with the AB 109, with the shifting, The city has been receiving AB 109 monies to help pay for the additional law enforcement and the activity, the criminal activity that the city has to deal with. So currently, and last year and this upcoming year, the 2014-15 budget, monies that have been received from the AB 109 coming through from the county has been able to cover the overtime of the police officers to handle the influx of small petty crime. So overtime has been covered by those kinds of monies. Currently, also right now, Civic Center has one employee that has been temporarily moved over to the correctional facility to help with increased maintenance cost. The salary for that employee has not been reallocated out of Civic Center. It's still located in there. Later on, there's going to be a decision made, how we're going to handle that, but right now, the employee's salary, the actual salary is being charged to the correctional facility, but his salary budgeted-wise is still in general fund. And then lastly, on this page, the correctional facility has added a total of 67 full-time employees.
How many more is that than we had prior?
I would say, I think it's 17, 15, 13, yeah, somewhere around there, because we were around 54, 53, fluctuating.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Another item that is reflective of changes between the 13-14 and 14-15 budget is now, since the records administrator and the city clerk are new in these positions, there has been an increase in their budget and training because since they're so new, they need to do a lot of certifications and be really familiar with their job. So it is in the best interest of the city to allow for that increase. Planning. In planning, we hired an actual planning director. Prior, our planning director now was on contract through the firm. So in the planning department, you'll see that there's an increase in salary, but then you should see there was a decrease in contractual obligations down further below that. And hiring a planning director actually saved us a little bit of money, because with having a contractor, even though we were paying maybe a little bit less or not, medical or those kinds of things, we were still paying travel at cost and those kinds of things. So it's a benefit for us. In the Civic Center, as I already stated, that the employee, that was doubled, I'm sorry, that there's an employee that he is temporarily over at the correctional facility. In the finance department, my department manages and handles all the computer maintenance. There has been an increase in computer maintenance due to the aging of our computers, and we're trying to do things that we haven't done, trying to get more in line with new technology and things. So we've been doing things that we haven't been doing in the past. So that's kind of a good thing, trying to get us up to speed on things. Also, in the finance department, the city, we recontracted or went out for RFP for audit services. The new contract that we have with the audit firm has come in at a decrease of what we paid from 13-14 by approximately $10,000, which is quite surprising, but a good thing. In the risk management budget, there is a large increase in the city's liability and vehicle insurance, and this is through the pool fund through the RMA.
Is that an overall increase, Teresa? for everyone, or is that targeted just for the city of Taft?
No, that is for everybody in the pool.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And then, the police department, there is an increase in training and development. In prior years, the police department were not sending all of their officers for their certificate, for their post and those kinds of things, and some of the monies was being paid out of other funding sources. Those funding sources are starting to run thin, so now to make sure our police officers are fully trained like they should be, we've increased the budget to ensure that all officers have the opportunity to get the training they need. Also, through the years, we've been trying to cut back our budget as tight as possible. This year, we've actually went through and in the 14-15, and we try to actually estimate the increases in utility cost and water cost and try to ensure that we budgeted appropriately for those line items so there would be no surprise, and that at the end of the year, we would have, the expenditures and revenues would match. And lastly, as all the other categories, through all the personnel costs, PERS rates have increased. They didn't increase as much as that we were anticipating. PERS cost, total PERS costs have increased approximately $91,000. That was with the addition of the police officer that Finance Committee had requested. Of the total PERS cost, which is a total of approximately $758,000 a year, $550,000 that contributes to from police department, and the remaining amount, the $208,000, is from all general fund employees. This is not counting the correctional facility. Any questions so far? Okay. This year's budget, we actually included some capital purchase items that all the departments felt that some of these are extremely critical at this point. The city administrator, we budgeted for another vehicle for the city manager. As you know, our chairs in our conference room, the front conference room, were probably at least 20 years old, and they're breaking now, they're starting to fall apart. In the finance department, we, as a management team, has discussed and decided that we wanted to host our own email. We've been having issues with our email, but we would like to start hosting our own email and having more control over it. So we've decided to budget for a server. Because of the budget constraints and things, I've delayed from prior year, from 13-14 to 14-15, the completion of the Munis upgrade. In the police department, they have asked for 2 additional police cars, which they haven't purchased a police car in the past few years. And we were intending on having at least buying 1 or 2 police cars every year to keep them cycling, and unfortunately, because of the budget constraints, we weren't allowed to do that, and so now we're trying to get back on track. Also, at the police department, there are 2 servers over there are at their end of life, and also there are 7 computers over at the police department that are approximately 7 years old that need to be replaced. And finally, at the police department, they've budgeted every year for 2 AC units, and they have put it off, but now they're at the point where we just can't put these things off any longer. At the animal control, unfortunately, since we've done this budget, the computer at the animal shelter has died, officially. And that computer, I would estimate, is probably 8 to 10 years old. And so that's going to be something critical that we're working on right now to get replaced. Also, when we're replacing it, we will have to bring it back before council. Her animal licensing software, she's going to need a new type of program, which we will bring that back before council to discuss that. Also, the city manager has requested that he purchase a backhoe. And the use of the backhoe, for the street department would be divided amongst the general fund, sewer, refuse, and both wastewater treatment plant, with each fund paying approximately $24,000. In street maintenance, for striping and repairs, these are for just minor things. It's $35,000 has been budgeted. And the garage for small tools and equipments and things that he may need throughout the year to maintain the police cars, the transit buses, the street department trucks, and those kinds of things. We've budgeted about $6,500. So for the total that has been budgeted in the 14-15 year is approximately $270,000. Now, this chart is showing that, and I put, and you can't really see it, but the 2014 actual number is what it was actual about a month ago. We're still working at accruing expenses and those kinds of things. So this, I just want to say that this is what it is. But the good thing is, as you can see, we still have a little gap between what was budgeted and what was actual. This is for expenses. So as you can see, in the past 2012, 2013, they were close in 2014. 2015, again, this budget that we're presenting to you is approximately $6.8 million. Any questions? So this is the graph that I show you every year. In this graph, we always want the blue line to be taller than the yellow line, because we want expenditures to come in below the budgeted amount, because as we know, the budget is revenues and expenditures are equal. So if expenditures are below the budget, then we know that as long as revenues came in as budgeted, we'll be in the black. Now this graph represents, it's the same as the other graph, except that we're adding in the revenues, which is the red line. And as you can see currently, but as I have mentioned, that we are still accruing for 2014, so these are not final numbers. 2013, as you can see, we expended more than what we brought in. Some of that was contributed to actually some street projects that were ongoing and billings weren't complete. So as of this year, you can see the lines are getting a lot closer and tighter. And that's why we decided to try to keep everything pretty close mirrored from 13-14 to 14-15 to try to stay on track as 2014 has been coming out. Any questions, sir?
Love the Technicolor bar graphs. Thank you very much. That's easy to follow. Everybody out there, go ahead, nod your head in improvement. That's right. Thank you very much. You ought to see when it's 75 pages of black and white little bitty numbers and you wade through them. So thank you, Teresa. Wonderful. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt your flow. I had
You're
to-
fine.
I had to comment.
We're not going to rush through this. We're going to, all the questions you want to answer or ask. Okay, it's not focused very well. I apologize for that. This is the percentage of payroll to expense. A lot of agencies have issues where their payroll costs, prevent or, you can't really operate if all their payroll costs use up all their funds. So this is a good representation to show that the city's payroll cost, and of course it varies because it depends on, the payroll costs stay kind of consistent, but if you have less money and your payroll costs stay consistent, then it appears to be higher than what it is. But this is just kind of taking a look at what the total dollars of payroll cost is over the years. So, and as traditional with all agencies, safety is your largest percentage of your payroll cost also. Any questions? So we're going to talk about revenue estimates for 2014-15. Property tax revenues are estimated to remain at the 2014 level. I know we have additional of homes coming in, but it takes some time before you start seeing those on the rolls and those kinds of things. And I really didn't want to include or estimate those because we're, again, keeping a conservative amount. Sales tax are estimated to decrease slightly to 1.7 million. We had our number one sales tax generator leave town. We have new ones coming in to replace them. They're not coming in as quickly as we hoped, but they're building. Just to stay on the conservative side, we've opted to decrease it in the budget to be realistic and conservative with our number. Currently, transit occupancy tax is estimated at approximately $45,000. That's based upon historical. It's not taking into account for the new hotel. We'll wait till that's built and we see how those start coming in before we'll start blending that in with our estimates. Business license fees are estimated to be slightly higher than 2014. My department, we've been very forward about trying to make sure that any business that the city uses, we try to make sure everybody has a business license. Anybody that we see operating in town, we try to make sure everybody's on an even playing field, everybody has a business license. So we've been very aggressive in making sure those have been taken care of, and it's been going quite well. Service fee and overhead generated from other funds is budgeted at approximately $2.1 million. A portion of that is coming from the correctional facility. I know that the CCF or the MCCF is generating more, but based upon council's direction and staff, a large majority of that is being set aside for building improvements, equipment replacement, and those kinds of things. So we're making sure that we don't over budget and spend all that money. We're trying to be very conservative and start trying to reverse the process and making sure that we're saving money at this time, making sure we rebuild up our reserves. Revenue from the police department is budgeted at $537,000. This includes monies from the school resource officers and various items, live scans, and of course, small amount from parking fines and those kinds of things. But the large majority of it is coming from the school resource officers' contracts. And the last item, which I had to put in there, This is the first time in a while.
That's good.
Yes, transferred in from general fund reserves is anticipated at $0, which is, that's a good thing to bring forth here. And finally, let's talk about the correctional facility. I know that a lot of people know that, you know, we have a nice contract with them, but everybody needs to remember too that we had a lot of shutdown costs and a lot of startup costs and a lot of money has gone through. So this is kind of just simply broke down to be upfront and show that that we received $3.7 million for services rendered from March to June. We had expenses of $2.3 million, which left a positive balance of approximately $1.4 million. But with the cost of the startup cost at approximately almost $1.2 million, and then the cost, the deficit from shutting down the facility at approximately $2.4 million, the whole operation and the remaining amount owed is still approximately $2.2 million. So it'll be some time, but as long as we keep showing that the facility is running like it is, it will be, I'm hoping by the end of next year, or, you know, time I do another presentation, we can say that it's good. We're back in the black for the correctional facility.
The biggest thing that the council keeps in the back of their mind is that although we have a 5-year contract, we have a 30-day out.
Yes.
And the winds have changed with the Department of Corrections and the state of California, and they can come in and shut us down in 30 days.
Right.
So even though we have a 5-year contract and we're doing a good job and we're meeting all the requirements and we've done everything that they've possibly asked us, we still have that looming over us. And this is good that we're paying these funds back to where we can get into a positive state again.
Yes. That is correct.
Well, and I think we need to emphasize the fact that we changed the business plan for the CCF. In the past, it was basically just whatever came off the top, we dumped it into the general fund, we spent it, it was spent, even for just general operating costs. And then when the CCF went away, all of a sudden, we were not only strapped with the deficit money for the shutdown, but we were also strapped with some of those programs that we were funding with CCF money that we either had to stop, shut down, or find money elsewhere. So, as Mr. Miller said, it's very important to understand that it's a 4.5-year contract because we were a little late getting it started, and that wasn't our fault, that was the state. But we're assuming that the contract will end in 5 years. We have to, because that's all we have. Now, 2 years down the road, we may get an extension, I don't know. But the key is that $2.2 million that you're showing right there is owed to the citizens of Taft. Not to anybody else but the citizens of Taft. And that was the one thing this council made it very clear, was that when the CCF reopened and there was a revenue stream eventually out of it, it would go to pay back the citizens of Taft so that services could be at least maintained and maybe even some gained back with the revenue. And I think it's important that we're clear about that we're not out of the woods yet, but we have a plan to pay off that deficit in the next couple of years, and then we'll see what happens with the state from that point going forward. But hopefully in a couple of years we'll be in the black at break even, and then we can start looking at what we can do with some of that revenue. So,
Yes.
thank you for bringing that slide. I think it's very important especially for the budget side of the city.
Okay. The city, based upon the number of years that we've had to cut back and the things, to currently, and I discussed this with the finance committee, for the city to run at the same level of services currently, the city, the budget needs to be approximately between $6.5 and $6.8 million. So that leaves to question, because as I shown earlier, some of the money is coming from still the correctional facility in the service and administration cost. So the city, but with the addition of new homes, and then hopefully with addition of new residents, and then hopefully follows along new businesses, our plan is we need to keep, trying to gain revenue sources, to make our budget balance, so we become less dependent on this money. If at any point the correctional facility if the state pulls out, we're going to have to make some choices at that time.
Sure.
And I wanted the council to be aware of that.
Lastly, the part of the equation that's been talked about in great detail after the deficit, after everything we have accrued has been repaid, is we have to fund an exit strategy. Just like the mayor said, we have a 5-year contract, 4.5 years now. Even at that, just like Councilman Miller said, it's a 30-day out. Okay, your contract's only as good as that. So we will work diligently to eliminate that debt that we have accrued since its closure. On top of that, we will fund an exit strategy in order to safeguard this city and the services are necessary to the taxpayers from another really bad hiccup, which would be the unplanned closure of the MCCF. So that's the last part of that. Those funds aren't included in the $2.202 million, but they are a very necessary part of the plan.
So, do we have any more questions from the council?
I have one that goes back to your first page on the
Sure.
police department overtime. Is on the AB 109 money, is there carryover from one year to another? You have to spend it all at 1 year, the overtime, AB 109?
It'll carry over, but I think it's pretty close because the officers are spending more time in court and overtime writing reports and those type of things, as Chief's explained to me, but I believe it's pretty close, isn't it, for actual spent?
Well,
Is there any carryover?
there was approximately 40,000 left over. We get a check. We get money
Yeah,
up front.
It's physical money, so whatever
Yeah.
carries over, it does carry over.
Yeah, we get to keep it. So there was 40,000 that carried over to the 14-15, and then according to the chief, we were supposed to get additional funds. I don't believe we've received those yet, but we still have the 40,000 to keep going. If we run out of the 40,000, we're keeping track of that. If we run out, then we can, at that point, address what we're going to do.
The other question I have on street maintenance and stripping repairs, is that 35,000 that for new equipment to do that, or is it just the cost of maintenance?
That's
the roads?
material and supplies, and this year, we're probably going to have to contract out the center line striping, since it's been a few years since we've done the whole city. That's the truck that comes out.
I see a couple purchases, I'll look at that as a physical piece of equipment or something.
It's under capital purchases, I guess, because when you walk away, there's paint on the road. So
Never thought of it that way, but that's a good point.
well, it's supposed to last. So, yeah.
Very good.
That's all I have, thank you.
Gentlemen, any other questions of the finance director?
Oh, thank you very much.
Very clean, easy to follow. Thank you very much,
Teresa. We
Teresa. You did
appreciate
a wonderful
your time.
job.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right, so at this time, I would entertain a motion to adopt a resolution entitled Resolution of the City Council of the City of Taft adopting the City of Taft's final budget for fiscal year 2013 and 14 and proposed budget for the fiscal year 14-15.
Motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. I guess I'm going to give it to Mr. Miller. Any further discussion, Mr. North?
None, thank you, Mr. Mayor, very clear.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
None.
Mr. Cryer?
A lot of work went into this.
Yes.
A lot of work, that's all I have to say.
Mr. Waldron?
No.
And I have none. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Noor,
Yes.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldrop,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cryer.
Yes.
Mayor Linder.
Yes, and I would note that that motion passed on a 5-0 vote of the council. Next item on the agenda is citizens' request for public comments. This is the time and the place for the general public to address the city council on matters within its jurisdiction. State law prohibits the council from addressing any issue not previously included on the agenda. Council may receive comment and set the matter for a subsequent meeting. We ask that you limit your time to 5 minutes. The first person wishing to speak tonight is Mr. Todd Lederer, Taft News Now, regarding the Robin Williams. Do you want to wait until that item comes up? Okay. Is that a consent calendar?
Yeah.
No?
Well, it's a talk. It's discussion.
Discuss.
Last item.
Oh, it's the last item, that's why I'm missing it. There it is, okay, gotcha. Okay,
Discuss.
we'll just hold until that item comes forward. Next person wishing to speak is Kathy Oren from the Taft Chamber of Commerce and Visitors Bureau, and she's got budget stuff she wants to talk about.
You got a look on that one.
It says right there, budget. And you wrote it. Maybe not.
Getting closer to Halloween, man.
You know, I was talking to Teresa, and I asked her if she was going to be presenting the budget, and that's what I wrote down.
How funny.
So,
We can
yeah.
talk on anything.
Well, I won't be talking on the budget, I can tell you that. You don't even want me to. Good evening from your neighborhood Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to remind everybody that we have Sit and Sips every Wednesday at 9 o'clock. This Wednesday, which is tomorrow morning, our mayor, who is also president of Oil Dorado, will be coming to enlighten us on how things are going with getting ready for Oil Dorado. I also want to remind you that also this month, we will have John Dodson and Susan Wells from the TIL program at Taft College, and Supervisor David Couch will be coming to visit us. So we have a full slate of visitors for the Sit and Sips in the month of September. So we invite everybody to come 9 o'clock to the Chamber Boardroom. This Friday is our car cruise. It's the first Friday of the month, so we'll be having a car cruise. This time, we're celebrating the 50s. The downtown businesses, many will be staying open, encouraging shopping. I think one of the posters says, "Women shop, men cruise." So we are also as sexist as we were in the 50s, apparently. So I'm not in charge of that. I'm not in charge of that poster, just wanted you to know that. So, but everyone is encouraged to come down. I don't think it will be as miserably hot. I remember talking to Todd last cruise night. It was 9 o'clock and it was 99 degrees on Center Street. So we don't look for that to happen this Friday. For those of you that are interested in tourism generally, we at the Chamber are part of the Board of Trade in that they invite us to join with them in many activities. And the Kern County Board of Trade is hosting a tourism showcase at Pioneer Village this year. That's on September 24th. And this year, it is open to the public. So if you're kind of interested in seeing what kind of tourism attractions there are countywide, there are some that I didn't know about, and I suspect that they're little known to a lot of people. But it's a fun time at Pioneer Village, September 24th. It's open to the public, and there will be a wonderful dinner. And, of course, there will be tickets available, and I'll let you know more about that. October is the deadline, and I believe it's towards the end of October, for the next round of a Board of Trade offerings for a grant. And we have been successful at the Chamber, and our success has manifested itself in billboards along I-5 and along Highway 99. We will again be throwing our hat in the ring for a Board of Trade grant to do billboards, because they really do work. We have several people come into the museum and into the Chamber and say, you know, we were just on our way to wherever and saw this and thought, wow, that looks pretty interesting. I'm hoping that we will also, on behalf of the Oil Dorado Committee, will want to try for one of those also. So that's what's new at the Chamber. Thank you for the chance to talk.
Talk budget.
And not on budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, next item on the agenda is council statements, non-action. Mr. Cryer.
Thank you, Mayor. October 25th, the Taft Community Garden is going to have a pumpkin carving for the kids, and also they like to invite the whole council there to carve some pumpkins. So they asked me to challenge us to
Can I
be
bring a
there.
chainsaw?
I brought an axe last time, so.
So they asked us to be there and the public to bring their kids there for all the contests and all the activities going on there at the community garden on October 25th. And I talk about is that here in town, we have American Legion right there on Center Street, next door to the Pizza Factory, and they can use some new members. You know, there are a lot of veterans here, and a lot of new ones in the service, or all people, not to be a veteran, as long as you're in the service or a veteran, you may join up or go there and partake in activities, and the camaraderie that goes on there at the American Legion Hall. And we need to use it, because if it don't get used like anything else, it's going to go away. And we need to get new members and participation there to keep it going. And see Gary Summer there. He's the commandant of the American Legion Hall there. And another thing I would like to say is a lot of things are happening in Taft. You know, there's always something going on, and unfortunately, you know, like a lot of us have to pick what one interests us the most. And I can't make them all, lots can't make them all, but a lot of things happening, and it's great. And I hope everybody had a great Labor Day yesterday and made it home safely, and spent time with the family and children. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cryer. Mr. Noor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to reserve my time for one of the agenda items I plan on spending a little bit of time on, so I'll hang on to that few minutes.
Very good. Mr. Miller, welcome back.
Well, thank you. I've got to get my head wrapped back around in city business. I must apologize. I've missed 3 council meetings in a row, but I had a good excuse, and I'm back feeling much more normal now than what I did about a month ago. So anyway, I want to thank people for all their kind words and comments during my recovery. I had a small portion of my colon removed, and I am feeling a lot better because of that. So I wouldn't suggest that you go out and do that, but I did lose some weight out of the deal.
You make it sound like it was elective.
In fact, it was elective. I'm glad I did it, and I have no regrets about it. So anyway, I'm kind of back in the groove again, I hope, and it's nice to be back. I did want to say, when Ms. Orrin was talking about the billboards, there's a nice big one down there in Castaic as you're heading north. It's right at the end before you start up the start up the hill. That's where there's some storage sheds and a lot of equipment. But it's a really nice looking billboard, and it's promoting Oil Dorado and the city of Taft, and it's got I believe it's got the picture of the oil workers on it. So it's great, and I assume there's some on the other end too. So I don't get up that way, but I get down to LA quite a bit. So anyway, I'm happy to be back, and I'll get back in the groove, Mr. Mayor. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Walter.
I have nothing, thank you.
Very good. Just to set the record straight, Mr. Miller, your excuse was good for 2 of those meetings.
That's right.
And I won't say anything.
Brain dead doesn't count for the other one.
Just wanted to say that I drove by the location of the new Taco Bell, and there's grade steaks all over the place. I could swear I smelt the cooking of ground beef and beans, but you know, so that's a positive thing. It's starting to move that way. I was very appreciative of BLM's opinion that they published regarding fracking. You know, somebody finally had the courage to stand up and say fracking is not bad. And that's pretty much what BLM said, so I appreciate that. And then I just wanted to take note that the flags were set out by the Kiwanis Club again for Labor Day. I was not in town, but I'm sure they looked as wonderful as ever, and If you're interested in a flag in front of your house or your business, contact a Kiwanis member. And that's all I've got tonight, so we'll move on to a Planning Commission report.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Well, the Planning Commission met twice last month. On August 6th, we met to discuss and approve the division of the future Taco Bell lot. Per the owner's request, the lot will be divided into 3 parcels, one to the west and one to the south of the Taco Bell. On August 20th, we met for our regular scheduled meeting where we considered and tentatively approved updated sections to the City of Taft and the West Side Recreation and Parks District Municipal Service Review for the Kern County Local Agency Formation Commission. Per a citizen's request, the commission reviewed a letter to the Alcoholic Beverage Control, ABC, pertaining to a business on the 600 block of Center Street. The letter, written by Planning Director Mark Staples, requested that the ABC put restrictions on their license. The restrictions included operating primarily as a restaurant as per their liquor license and use permit, operating time restrictions, proper employee training, and loitering and outside smoking provisions. The letter was discussed and approved. Planning Director Mark Staples updated us on the current status of the Best Western Hotel, the Sandy Creek Estates, and the Taco Bell, AKA Mayor Trifecta.
Thank you. I think it's just statement. Renee, I'm sorry, a council member has a question.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right.
The question I have is real simple. On that location where Larry, on that bar you're talking about, if they're not, if they decide not to put a bar there, or they back out of putting a license on it, will that affect future businesses to put a bar and restaurant there?
Yes, they'll have an additional use permit.
For all future,
Yes.
they lost that CUP then, basically until then.
Yes, they can close for over 30 days.
Good question. Thank you.
The ones that would stay in effect if it was just a transfer of ownership, since it went in limbo. Lost it.
All right. Do we have any department reports tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on to city manager statements. Mr. Jones?
I have none.
Thank you, sir. Item number 9, city attorney statements.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, no statement.
Thank you, sir. Item number 10 is future agenda requests. Gentlemen, are there any items you would like to have placed on a future agenda?
I have one.
Sir?
I think I did a study. Why is it several council meetings we've had in the past, it seems like you have a left and a right, but always in the middle there, and the way it sits in the middle. Is that something we investigate or?
Should we move the middle road?
Yeah, there's always-
Access to
always
egress, I do.
Nobody
believe.
wants to look me straight on is what it is, and I don't blame them. I think your agenda request should be that we put an aisle right there.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Cryer. All right, we're going to move on to the consent calendar, items 11 through 15. All items listed on the consent calendar shall be considered routine and will be enacted by one roll call vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of the city council requests specific items to be removed from the consent calendar for separate action. Any item removed from the consent calendar will be considered after the regular business items. And the items tonight are item 11, minutes of the August 19th regular meeting, item 12, payment of bills, item 13, amended agreement with Westside Healthcare District for inmate medical services, item 14, correctional program instructor credentialed, item 15, delaying implementation of cap and trade on gas and diesel, and item number 16, solids removal at the, 15. No, I said that.
Yes.
Yeah, you was going to 16.
I was going to
16's on there. You said 15 to begin with, but it is.
Oh, I'm sorry. Item number 16 is solids removal at the Taft Municipal Wastewater Treatment Plant. All right, so are there any items that you gentlemen would like to have removed?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to remove item number 15, please.
Okay. Number 15.
Mr. Mayor, I must recuse myself from item 11. I was brain dead that night, and I did not attend the meeting.
Okay.
I will have to do the same thing. I was not
Yes.
here, but not for the same reason.
And I think I'm going to request item 16 be removed, so, therefore, I would entertain a motion to approve items on the consent calendar 11, 12, 13, and 14.
Motion?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. May we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Cryer,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldrop.
Yes.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Noor,
Yes.
Mayor Linder.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to item 15, delaying implementation of cap and trade on gas and diesel. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. At the August 19th, 2014 council meeting, Mayor Pro Tem Cryer requested that the attached information regarding Assembly Bill 69, which seeks a delay in implementation of including gas and diesel fuels under the cap and trade regulations, be supported and added to a future agenda. Assembly Bill 69 and the proposed resolution are supported by the oil industry.
Thank you very much. So we can have discussion. I would entertain a motion to approve a resolution entitled, "A Resolution of the City Council of the City of Taft Supporting Assembly Bill 69 Seeking Delay in the Implementation of the Fuels Under the Cap Regulation." We need a motion and a second to discuss.
Second.
There we go. All right, thank you.
He asked that it be placed on there, so in honor of that request, I was just being courteous.
All right, so I'm going to go to you, Mr. Noor. You requested this item be pulled.
Well, thank you very much. And first off, I want to thank Mayor Pro Tem Cryer for bringing this forward, but I wanted to briefly discuss this. And cap and trade, all one need do to figure out what's going on is follow the money. Cap and trade has been instituted for some time in the state of California. As a matter of fact, last year, the state borrowed some $500 million from the cap and trade account because it was just sitting there gathering up funds and building, and there were no shovel-ready projects for it. So they simply borrowed the money, so it went into the general fund. Why would the state, at a time when the economy in this state is just starting to grow again, just starting to heal, why would they want to saddle anybody and everybody in the state of California with additional expenses related to the purchase of something as necessary as gasoline and diesel fuel? Why is that? And we already have the highest taxes on a gallon of gasoline in the state. We have the highest personal income taxes in the entire United States of America. Why more taxes? Why would we want to do that? I don't know if everybody's aware of it, but the Federal Transportation Fund is about to go insolvent. It's going to go broke. There is a proposal, and it's bipartisan, to increase the federal tax on a gallon of gasoline or a gallon of diesel fuel by 12 cents a gallon in order to be able to fund the federal highway funds program, so that all those jobs aren't lost. So more money. And here's some of the irony involved in this. Of course, all governments, and part of it has to do with greenhouse gas, is pushing higher mileage vehicles. If everybody got rid of their one-ton truck and everybody drove a Prius tomorrow, it'd be a better world, right? We would solve all the greenhouse gas problems, and cars would go down the road and they would spit out petunias and poetry, and we would live happily ever after. Nothing could be further from the truth. That's not going to happen. The flip side of that is you buy fewer gallons of gas. If you buy fewer gallons of gas, you create less tax increment. Then when somebody like Teresa presents the budget, she has to say, look, everybody was driving a one-ton, now is driving a Prius, and they're not buying much gas, so the income from sales tax is going to drop dramatically. So we are either going to have to cut back on the services we provide you, the taxpayers, or we're going to have to increase your taxes. That's kind of the way things are working. So cap and trade, why cap and trade? What shovel-ready project is hanging in the wings in the state of California that one could, if one pushed very, very hard, call it a greenhouse gas reduction project? What is it? Anybody got any ideas? I think, let me give you a hint. Tinkerbell and Peter Pan will ride this fairy tale land railroad. Anybody got any ideas?
High-speed rail.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miller. The governor and, in point of fact, the President of the United States want high-speed rail in the state of California so bad they are willing to ignore any and all business plans, whether existing throughout the world or somewhere in somebody's mind, because none of them pencil out. They don't do it. So since, you remember when we voted on the bond, and originally this whole thing was supposed to cost about $30 billion, and then it slowly swelled to about $100 billion, they said if we just get this thing started, then private sector funds are going to pour in, and we'll be able to pay for this. Private sector funds will just pour in, as will additional federal funds. But guess what? That's not happening. That's not happening. We're spending billions of dollars right now, and we haven't put a shovel in the ground. Matter of fact, there are more pending lawsuits over the EIRs. We're getting sued by communities that are getting high-speed rail because they don't want it, and the ones who aren't getting that want it, they're suing too. Hell, everybody's suing everybody. The only people who are making money on high-speed rail are lawyers. It's kind of like the great California divorce, if you will. When it's all said and done, there'll be nothing left, the money will be gone, the lawyers will be happy, and we'll have nothing to show for it. It's cap and trade. If you look at what's taking place in the city of Detroit, city of Detroit's going bankrupt. Currently, there are proposals going before the court regarding settling the debt and their restructuring of debt. And a big portion of that is what? Public employees' pensions. It's huge, just as it is in the state of California. One of the proposals going to the courts is pensioners would take a 4.5% cut in their pensions. They would lose 90% of their medical benefit. But people who have the municipal bonds, the municipal bond holders, in other words, the people who lent money to the city so that they could build things, so that they could fund improvements, they want them to stare at reimbursement rates somewhere between 0 and 10%. 0 and 10 cents on the dollar. Well, some people think, so what? They're not a person. Pensioners get 4.5% cut, lose 90% of their medical benefits, but who cares about a bond company? Let's think about that. Who do you think actually funds improvement in municipalities? Somebody has to buy bonds, and they buy bonds because they're going to earn interest. Now, let's say it goes through like it's proposed. Then all of a sudden, municipal bonds, and Detroit was a big city, take a huge black eye. The risk factor involved in investing in municipal bonds will skyrocket. In order for municipalities then to sell bonds and draw investors, they will have to do what? They will have to offer higher interest rates. What does that do to the cost of any infrastructure improvement in a municipality? It drives the cost up. The taxpayer gets less for their dollar, and your debt service rises dramatically. So what are you going to have to do? You're either going to have to, in order to pay down that debt service or provide the services that you had to, you will have to increase taxes on the backside. All of this so that you could still fund an unfundable pension plan. Okay, everybody? It's coming back around there. And all one need do is follow the money. It is happening. It will happen in Stockton. And I know you've heard this from me before, and I hate to be so redundant, but all these moves continue to be for the same reason. $600 billion CalPERS is underfunded. The number is so huge. Matter of fact, we need to quit talking about numbers. I feel embarrassed. Even McDonald's understood once you got that far. He just put a big sign up that said, billions and billions served. Well, CalPERS needs to have a big sign that says, billions and billions missing. And that way we'll quit trying to figure out how much it is, because we don't know. Who's getting a raw deal? The taxpayers are getting a raw deal. The people who are members of those unions who work hard every day and do their jobs for the taxpayers, but are being told that at the end of the road, these monies and these benefits will be there, that's who's getting a raw deal. And by me bringing it forward, it's not because I don't appreciate the job they do all day, every day. Nothing could be further from the truth. I'm going to get a small pension from an oil company that I worked for, and I get a statement every year. The statement that I got last time was it's funded at 106%. That's kind of a nice deal. And they tell you, if you want us to buy you out, we'll send you a check for everything that you're going to get right now. 106%. State of California last year is looking at this surplus. Remember, we passed Prop 30. Prop 30 raised our state income taxes to the highest level in the United States of America. It's a temporary tax. We've already forgotten about that. It's not going to be here forever, we hope. But where'd all this money come from? Well, we had a couple, $3 billion extra dollars. Of course, then along came the Affordable Health Care Act, and all the extra people signed up on Medicare, and so then we had to, Medi-Cal, so we had to fund that. So now we're down to about an extra $1.5 billion. That's a lot of money. So let's say we have that banner year, and we end the year with that $1.5 billion still in our hands, and we apply it to that $600 billion debt. Now, one only need do the math to know that it's going to take several centuries of banner years before we ever approach funding that debt. It's never going to happen, okay? It will fail. And who's going to be left holding the bag when it fails remains to be seen. It will happen in cities like Detroit, and it will happen in Stockton, it could happen in San Bernardino, and everybody's looking at it. It's going to happen. And that's a shame. So why cap and trade? Cap and trade is an effort to sneak a tax through the back door to get you to fund something that cannot be funded using a conventional business plan, or one that will simply work, much like the pension plans that were all the rage. We're just now seeing it. There will be a day of reckoning, okay? If the Federal Transportation Fund passes and we get another 12 cents a gallon on a gallon of gasoline, and then cap and trade goes through and we get somewhere between 12 and 76 cents a gallon on another gallon of gasoline, and a gallon of gasoline hits $6 a gallon, we need to start a pool. Who's going to be the first senator to insist that we have some kind of insight, we have some kind of court ruling to figure out why these oil companies are gouging all the consumers? Where's all the money going? We are going to completely forget about the fact that we did it to ourselves. Government did it to ourselves. Doesn't have a damn thing to do with it costs to get oil out of the ground or refine it. Has everything to do with they, being government, being able to attach funding sources to something they know you have to buy, you have to go places. We have to put fuel in fire trucks. We have to put them in police cars. We have to put them in my car to get me to the city council meeting. And you will all use it. And you'll grumble and you'll piss and moan, but you will continue to pay it because you have to. And they know it. So, I don't mean to get too vocal about all this, but no, all one need do is follow the money. It's a hose job, all right? There's no reason for it other than divorcing you from discretionary funds, which will leave you without the ability to fund your own 401k, for heaven's sakes. The vehicle we're all supposed to have because Social Security's not going to be there. All right. I've enjoyed speaking with all of you regarding this particular issue. That's why I thank you for my time. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very well said, too. I think I need to go to Mr. Miller next.
I have nothing.
Did you have no statements? You're not going to follow that?
No. That was excellent.
That was excellent.
Yeah, can't top that.
All right, Mr. Waldron, any
I have,
comments?
no.
All right, sir, thank you. We have a motion. Did you have any comments?
I did.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
We're hard to compete, though. You said it all, basically, you said it all. But one bright spot in the whole thing, if you want to call it a bright spot, it does sunset in the year 2020. So we can suffer a few more years on this, but sadly about the whole thing is that California's the only state that had that cap and trade right here. How can we compete with other countries and other states when it costs us more money for energy to grow our businesses? How are we going to buy our products in California? You have to, it's more difficult to do it. So it is taken away from us, from the taxpayers and from the cities and all industries to progress and be producers. And I think too, people understand that the money from the cap and trade, from the cost of fuel tax for the diesel goes to Section 8, goes to high-speed rail, goes to low-income housing, goes to other things. How's it going to, what's go for clean the air or come with new technology to run our equipment more efficient, to use less fuel, less emissions and stuff. It doesn't go to those things for new technologies. It goes for social issues, I call it. But It's just another deal that's going to put more roadblocks in progress in California. There's more businesses want to leave California and go to Texas or other states, but the majority of them are going to Texas. And you're barely smiling again. Unfortunately, this is my home. I love it here, and it's hard to move Taft out to Texas. But there is a city in Texas called Taft, though.
Oh.
Not too far out of Houston. I found that out.
Yeah, there was someone there the other day looking for me.
True story.
But, it's not the oil companies doing it, because we are the oil company. We are the owners of the oil companies and stuff. It's the government that putting things on us that beyond our control, and people vote for it and not realizing what the impact is on our pocketbooks and what that costs us in our business and stuff. But it's one of the things, it's the right direction we need to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cryer. I believe we've had our discussion. May we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Fryer?
Yes.
Councilmember Nor?
Yes.
Councilmember Waldrop?
Yes.
Councilmember Miller?
Yes.
Mayor Linder?
Yes, thank you very much. Moving on to item 16, which is also poetry and petunias. Let's talk about solids removal at the Taft Municipal Wastewater Treatment Plant.
Thank you, Mayor. A recent test at the wastewater treatment plant have indicated that solids have reached a high level, which is out of state compliance for total suspended solids. City must have the solids from Lagoon 1 dredge, which will bring the plant into regulatory compliance and prepare for our scheduled maintenance project. Staff plan to have this procedure done in the upcoming maintenance project, which has taken longer than anticipated to be funded by the USDA. Staff has met with Kern Sanitation Authority as required by our joint powers agreement, and they concur this must be completed before commencement of the plant overhaul, and funds needed will be spent out of wastewater treatment plant capital reserves. Synagro estimates a cost of $89,929, but could be as much as $100,000 depending on the actual volume of solids removed.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to approve expenditures not to exceed $100,000 out of the wastewater treatment plant capital reserves for solids removal at the Taft Municipal Wastewater Treatment Facility.
So moved?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Gentlemen, I just asked this to be pulled because I think it's important that the citizens know, including those that live in the county that are on our sanitation system, that it costs money to operate a wastewater treatment plant, and this is just one of those items that it's ongoing maintenance of the facility. So I just didn't want anybody to think that it was free out there, and that the rates that we are charging now have allowed us to make sure that we have adequate funding to do this type of maintenance, to keep that system operational and without having to go into debt to do it. So that's my reason.
We got 1.5 million gallons going through there daily, and it isn't all liquid, so
No.
it builds up after a while. So.
Very true. So that was my reason for pulling it. I don't know, Mr. Miller, do you have any other comments?
No, I don't.
Mr. Waldrop?
No comment.
Mr. Cryer?
No comment.
Mr. Nor?
No, sir.
Very good. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Miller?
Yes.
Councilmember Nor?
Yes.
Councilmember Waldrop?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fryer?
Yes.
Mayor Linder?
Yes, thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to item 17, discuss and direct staff regarding relocation of sidewalk sign by Robin Williams. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. At the last council meeting, Mayor Linder directed staff to find out the costs associated with relocating a piece of sidewalk containing the signature of the recently deceased actor Robin Williams from North Street to an area in the vicinity of the Fox Theater. Total cost is estimated at $410 for staff time and $120 in materials to move the portion of the sidewalk and pour the small new section back. Todd Letter made the original request to the Taft City Council at the last meeting, and he said that he will conduct fundraising to cover the full expense of the city. The Fox Theater supports the signatures being relocated to the Center Street location.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. I appreciate the information. The one interesting part of this, and I'm still not clear on, is that Mr. Jack Leonard, who was here last council meeting, had made a statement in some respect that the concrete was his. Did we clarify that? Well, I'm sorry, Todd, you had asked to speak on this. Maybe
Todd was going to be our agent.
All right,
So,
our agent,
I don't know
okay.
what he's,
Good evening,
Came up
Council, Mr. Mayor. Todd Letter, Taft News Now, 102.5 Pierce Street, Fort City. Regarding the Robin Williams, moving the signatures of Robin Williams and also Kurt Russell, which is next door to it, I think is a project that can benefit Taft and the citizens of Taft, in that where I want to relocate it to is in front of the Fox Theater. It's part of a bigger plan that when we have actors come to town, which we often do, such as we just had Oliver Burnson come to town, that we also pour an additional portion of concrete and have their signatures put in it, and create our own like Grauman's, so that folks that stay in the hotel that we're building, they have something else to come down and see. It's just another draw to the city of Taft. Addressing the item that you brought up, I have had discussion at length with Mr. Leonard, and he is in agreement. I have told him that his objection of the $80 fee that he had paid at one time to the city, that Taft News Now would reimburse him for that $80. And we had discussion of it, and he's fully in agreement with relocating the sidewalk. He did make a request, and I agree with it, that we're concerned that just removing the concrete, knowing when it was poured, that it may not be of sufficient strength, that there could be damage to it. We would like to keep presenting this and get approval of the council to do it, knowing that we're going to take all the care necessary in order to make it happen. But we'd like to try and pour a plaster mold on top of it after I have it pressure washed, and see if we can't get a cast imprint of it, and then pour another section on top of that plaster, so that we basically duplicate what's there, or replicate it, and move that in front of the Fox Theater. And we have had commitments from some of the downtown businesses. We can fund it, and so before any work gets scheduled or anything, I will pay the city for the work that's being done. And I'm not sure how we need to do that as far as doing the plaster mold, whether it's something I can do or the city has to do, so I need to be advised on that. But that's kind of our plan. Other than that, I would just suggest that when we do go to cut it out, we cut out a 2-inch strip in front of it. We examine it just to see what it looks like, and how thick it is, what composition of material it's made out of, whether we can safely remove it. And then that we bore underneath it in 3 locations, putting straps underneath it and slinging it and taking it out with a bucket straight up. So that's pretty much what I
And your
have.
location, you say, in front of the Fox, where kind of are you talking about?
Right,
On
along the sidewalk, there's the cobblestones.
Right.
But in between those cobblestones and right on both sides of the Fox Theater are smooth portions of concrete. And those happen about every 8 to 10 feet down Center Street. And so that we'd like to put like Kurt Russell on one side and Robin Williams on the other. And then continue to do in kind of a stair step away from the Fox Theater as other actors and actresses come to town.
Wonderful. Sounds good. It's kind of hidden out of the way, and you really have to go around and find it down there. And where it'd be on Center Street, it'd be perfect.
It is.
Great idea.
And actually, I think if we can duplicate it, or replicate it rather, and do that would actually be the best way to do it. Then Jack gets his cake and eat it too. But we're actually putting something else in place that we know is sturdy. Because even if we do move it, if it's not of sufficient strength, just walking on it once we put it back in place could damage it, and we don't want that to happen. So that's actually the way I learned that after last council meeting, and so that's.
Well, I assure you, we have some excellent cement guys on our staff here
Yes.
that know exactly what they're doing, so I would know that they would take a great care, because that's what they do all day in and day out, so, yeah.
Super.
I'd like to make a recommendation that, because of the possibility of vandalism, because of all the notices getting lately from the news, that we remove it and store it somewhere at a time in the future that they can put out in the Fox Theater and do it right and properly, not be in too big of a hurry and not do it and have to do it later in the future. But,
Correct. And I have talked to Kent Koch, the owner of the Fox Theater, that if we do remove it and mount it on a plywood board like we talked about, that inside the display case window is an option for a temporary site for it until we have time to inlay it.
Thank you. Mr. Nor?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It would seem to me that you could move forward with the attempt of making the plaster cast of both of them, and then try to pour a piece of cement, it didn't need to be that thick, and actually see if you will get a representative sample of what it was. And then I don't know that it would be necessary to remove it from where it is right now. I mean, you've come up with an alternative plan. After all, like you say, if it were to crumble when you try to cut it out of there, then what would you be left with? But if you make that plaster cast and then you try to prove the process, then you can have your cake and eat it too. So, I don't know, just a thought. You brought it up. It makes sense to me. It's been there for quite some time, and it was actually poured there and signed there and imprinted there. I would think it would mean more being there, and you still being able to show the people at the Fox Theater just exactly what it was, so it'd be more accessible. That's my comment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Waldron?
I just think we should continue discussing this and find out the proper way, and this is some great people that we are to recognize that came to our town, and it's a brass button on our coat, so I think we are to pursue
Mr.
it.
Waldrop, I'd like to get concurrence that we direct staff to work with Mr. Litter and the Fox Theater and our staff here, see what can be done to do it, to preserve it. We'll try, plaster or whatever, but I think we all agree. I think this is a great idea to get it up there where it gets much more visual and people really get to see it. And like we said, if we get more celebrities to come to the area, and we could do another one, and another one, and another one. That's a great idea.
I will concur for that.
Thank you.
Very good. My only comment is shared amongst the council, and that is the possible destruction of that concrete, because I've been by and looked at it, and you're right, the concrete is not very sufficient concrete. You wouldn't be allowed to pour that today. The plaster cast would certainly be a very viable plan, because now you have it forever as long as nobody drops the plaster cast. But the other, and I'm looking at the bigger picture, and I like the idea of what you're saying, but I am concerned that when you start placing things like that on a thoroughfare that's as busy as the front of the Fox, that you actually create a quicker degradation of that particular item. Right now, it's lasted as long as it has because that corner doesn't get a lot of action. But you put it in front of the Fox Theater, as well as any other imprint or anything, and you'll notice there will be degradation.
I know that down in front of Grauman's Theater in Hollywood, those people walk all over those and stick their feet and hands in there, and so I don't know.
Well, that was leading to my point, and that is we need to find out exactly what kind of concrete they use, because most of the stars down there are marble and tile and brass, and that stuff's not going anywhere. But the handprints, as Mr. Miller said, is probably an epoxy-based cement. I don't know, but I think the plan is a good one. Let me rephrase it. I think the idea is a good one. We don't have a plan, because as time goes by and things happen on Center Street, if we have to rip out sidewalks for some reason, for ADA compliance or just plain renovation and repair, we're putting an undue strain on city finances again for this. I was kind of hoping that he would want to maybe move it up into the foyer of the Fox. But anyway, I would concur also with what you're saying, is that we have an idea. Let's work on a plan. It's not going anywhere. It's not going to hurt it to be there for another, week or 6 months or whatever it takes us to get it done. But we want to do it right. So I think staff has direction. I think, some sort of direction, so.
Well, the thing is someone's going to pay for it, so it's no different than
Right.
us doing concrete for someone's residential house they're paying for. We
Correct.
follow their direction, so. But our guys are good, and if anyone can do it, they can do it.
Well, I really like the idea of testing it, because you might get up there and find out it's only 2 inches thick.
Yeah, you never know what you're going to come.
You just don't know, so, anyway, I think staff has adequate direction, and we'll keep moving that way, so, thank you. Okay, at this time, the city council is going to adjourn to closed session, and tonight, the items are a conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, Government Code Section 54956.9, paragraph B, 1 undisclosed case, and item B, conference with property negotiator, city manager, Government Code Section 54956.8, rails to trails right-of-way west of Hillard Street, Taft, California. Thank you for being